Welcome to the Funny Books and Firewater podcast. Each week these idiots pair cocktails with comic books. You can find the cocktails, drinking game rules, and playlists on the blog at funnybooksandfirewater.com. While at funnybooksandfirewater.com, you can also find a drinking game rule to play while you listen to each episode. You can follow us at Firewatercast on Twitter, and Funny Books and Firewater on Facebook and Instagram. This is episode 162. Pretty deadly. Part of our Written by Women month.
Hey, and welcome to episode 162 of the Funny Books and Firewater podcast. This week we are continuing on our month of women writers, or written by women, I think we called it, with Pretty Deadly by Sue DeConnick. See, Lena, I told you we're all morons, and I fixed it all in editing. Speaking of which, we have a special guest, and since it's ladies first, we'll start with Lena. Hi, Lena.
Hi.
You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm Elena. I am an event planner located in the Connecticut, New York area. And I've come to find that I am friends with the nerdiest people in the world.
Yes, you have.
Yay!
And we suckered her in. We're doing a month of women writers, and we have no women on the show. So to keep us from being a sausage fest, she has been so kind as to step in.
Or did we,
so we appreciate
lasso her in? Because it's a Western book this week. Anyway, we're going to move on.
Yeah, no. Here with the dad jokes, even though he's not a dad, we have Mr. Jason.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Jason. I'm a writer in Los Angeles, temporarily working in the game capture department for a trailer house. And here is your weekly WGA update. So if you remember from last week, the WGA filed a civil lawsuit against the ATA, the Association of Talent Agencies. And the wife of the initial judge assigned to the case used to work for one of the big agencies. So the WGA used their only preemptory challenge to remove that judge on the basis of prejudice. That has actually since succeeded, and a new judge has been assigned. The next part in the process won't actually happen until sometime in October, unless the agencies decide to file their own preemptory challenge. And in the meantime, writers and showrunners and a few studio execs have gotten together at a few WGA mixers to do the job of agents in doing their own networking. So yeah.
And someone being very fancy and all Hollywood was at one of those mixers.
Yes, he shall remain nameless.
Yeah, he shall.
He shall.
Anyway, he shall. Not remaining nameless and actually a dad, we have Mr. Todd.
I am a dad. That's still kind of weird to say. You know that. The fact that I'm responsible for someone else's life, and I'm I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, someone made a wrong call.
That would be your wife. She made the wrong call, but that's okay.
I know.
This is true, yes. That's what you blame the woman.
Hey now.
So yeah, I'm Todd. I'm based out of here in Salt Lake, Utah. See me around, say hi, I do this podcast. Sometimes I do other ones, but it's been a hot minute, so.
Yeah. That actually, that reminds me, I am apologizing for, I missed another week. So we're a week off and publishing these right now.
Sure.
Frankly, the deal was, as you heard, I was doing multiple gigs and then I went on vacation and I literally just had absolutely no time whatsoever to do it. And between
go on vacation, you get paid nothing to do this, and you missed it, and you let vacation win. How dare you, sir? How dare you?
I know. I'm a horrible, horrible person. But
hey, I missed it. I was very upset that there wasn't a new episode.
I'm sorry. One of these weeks,
someone was.
See, here's the thing. That's why we have to put people on the show. Eventually, everyone will just be on the show. We won't have any listeners. We'll just have participants. That's what's going to happen.
We need to round up William.
We do need to round up William. William, email me back. Or anybody else who wants to be on the show just for fun. Email me at funnybooksandfirewater@gmail.com if you want to be a guest on the show and talk to us morons. We'll figure it out. It'll be great.
That'd be awesome.
Speaking of not a guest and also not a moron, we have Mr. Adam.
Well, I'm glad you kind of added that little part at the end of it, because I thought you were going to be and here's another moron. Hey guys, this is Adam, reviews editor and film critic for Big Shiny Robot. Still trying to figure out what we're doing on Bored as Hell podcast with Andy Wilson.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, Andy. And then, of course, actually I recorded today over at Cinema Queens with our good friend Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris. And we've talked about this before, and we're going on with this, that we are planning to do a crossover episode. So Cinema Queens will come on and do an episode with us, and then everyone here will come over on Cinema Queens and review an LGBT movie. We've picked a superhero theme for the month since we're kind of going with the whole comic book thing. The 3 movies for sure that we're doing is Deadpool 2, X-Men 2, X-Men United, Wonder Woman, and the 4th one we're still kind of deciding on. We kind of went with Suicide Squad because I want to be able to rant about it. And of course, with the whole Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy thing. There is a really cool-looking DC animated series about Constantine, and since he's bi, I thought that might be kind of fun to go with that. But that 4th one's still in the air, so we'll sit down eventually and figure out what book we're going to do, and then also what movie we're going to do. So
my vote's on Howard the Duck.
Ain't nobody need them duck titties.
Interspecies erotica. You can do Clerks too.
Kelly can be a guy's name too.
I miss my donkey. Yeah, the other one I would just throw out there, I don't know if it totally falls under your category, but Dr. Marsden and the Wonder Woman is actually really good as well.
Ooh.
That could be a good one too. I don't know if we want to have 2 Wonder Woman movies.
I mean, it would be actually kind of an interesting pairing, actually.
Yeah, I Eddie bought that a long time ago. We meant to watch it and then just never.
I loved
happened,
it.
So.
I thought it was amazing. So, actually, you should do your first double feature. Watch that and Wonder Woman together.
Maybe.
Yeah. That's
right.
Maybe of a no fuck you. I caught that.
No, the problem we're having is the same problem we had here, is that with my work schedule and his work schedule, trying to coincide a day off or a time off where we can do it. I mean, we missed 2 weeks because there was no way to get together to do this. So, I mean, thankfully this weekend, next weekend, I have Sunday off, so it makes it really ideal to do that. But unfortunately, even when those days off happen, it's like, oh, he's got plans or I've got a screening or something. So
we got all through that. So, Mr. Todd. Before we mention it, Mr. Maya is off wrestling or something. He's running around in spandex, so he's not here joining us this week. So we miss him, but we'll see him soon. But Mr. Todd, speaking of Mr. Maya, what is your Myification for this book?
So it's really a Western horror mythology. Is how this breaks down.
Yeah.
Is that even what Image says?
Image says Western fantasy.
Western fantasy. There's a lot of horror and mythology elements in there too. Yeah. So I kind of see it as an Unforgiven meets a Vampire Hunter D kind of a thing.
I would call it Unforgiven meets Sandman.
Sure.
There's some Sandman elements to it, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah.
So, well, cool.
So, yeah.
Well, then let's jump into votes as to whether or not we believe it is worth you, our dear listeners, hard-earned time, money, and effort to go hunt this book down and give it a read. And since we actually conned someone into going in and reading it, Lena, what's your vote?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Jason.
Also a yes.
Mr. Todd.
Yes.
Mr. Adam.
Yeah, yes.
I'm kind of with Mr. Adam. Yeah. Yes, and sort of. I think yes for a very particular type of reader. I don't think it's a general audience kind of book. But cool. So that's a majority of us voting saying yes. So, of course, what else do we need but a drinking game to go along with it? Mr. Adam, what is your drinking game rule?
So this is a once per page drinking game rule. It's called Bang Bang. Every time someone shoots a gun.
Okay. Mine is called The Talking Dead, which is take a drink every time there's a voiceover from a dead rabbit. And you can pretty much just do that at the beginning of each issue. You don't have to do it like every single time because that would probably kill you. Lena, do you have a drinking game for us?
I actually do. It's super cheesy. It's Sing to Me. So anytime someone sings to there's Ginny.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's not a cheesy one. I'd be proud of that one. That's a good one. Stand proud with your drinking game rule.
It took me quite a minute.
Yeah. Mr. Jason, what is your drinking game rule?
Mine is called Death Tax. Anytime death is used as a proper noun, take a drink.
And Mr. Todd?
Mine is called The Red. Every time the art in the book has the red as a jarring juxtaposed color compared to the rest, you need to take a drink.
The irony of how much stuff you do with color just kills me. I love it. Isn't
it great? Todd is fairly colorblind, for those who don't know.
Fairly. Well, we covered it in a couple of weeks ago because I was editing that episode. It's supposed to come.
You're assuming everyone listens to every episode?
Valid point. So
I do.
Yeah, see, Lena does.
Well, thank you.
That's why she gets to be on the show.
I don't have to listen to it. I
live it. Cool. So let us jump into playlists, some songs to listen to while you're reading this. Leno, do you have a song for us?
I do. Big Empty by Stone Temple Pilots.
Ooh, that's a good call. Mr. Jason.
I couldn't choose between these two Johnny Cash songs, so God's Gonna Cut You Down and When the Man Comes Around.
Also, speaking of Johnny Cash, Mr. Adam.
Again, Johnny Cash, Riders in the Sky.
And then, speaking of Riders on the Storm by The Doors. And Mr. Todd.
Mine is She Visits Me by Vast.
Okay. I'm thinking I'm remembering that song. Maybe I'm making it up that I'm remembering that song.
I think you're making it up, but it's a
I remember the
great song
band
for this.
Vast for some reason.
Yeah. I bet you probably do. But yeah, this is a rather stripped down song as compared to some of his other overproduced stuff.
There was a really great pirate cover band called Avast.
Avast. I actually, when I was in North Carolina, I went and saw a Viking metal band named Thunderlip that were actually pretty amazing. They had a song called Bad Day on the High Seas, which was pretty awesome. And Laser Hawk, which was about a hawk with lasers in its laser talons. It was, they were classy, but awesome.
That sounds
approve.
It was super fun, actually. I think it also, I mean, to be fair, in my criticism of them, it was also a $2 vodka Red Bull night at that bar. So
they sounded amazing.
Oh, so puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
Puzzle pieces.
I was bouncing off the walls just a wee bit. So yeah, there's that. Well, cool. Well, then let's jump into cocktails to have a drink while we're reading this book and listening to some tunes and playing a drinking game. Not necessarily wanting to play the drinking game with these cocktails, because knowing us, that would probably kill you.
I did mine once per page.
That's true. Well, Mr. Adam, what is your cocktail?
So mine's called the Revolver. You're going to take 1.5 ounces of bourbon, a half ounce of coffee liqueur, and 3 dashes of orange bitters. You're going to add that to a shaker filled with ice. You stir it, don't shake it. Don't be like James Bond. And then strain it into a chilled martini glass and garnish with an orange peel.
Awesome. Mr. Jason, what is your cocktail?
Mine actually sounds somewhat similar. It is called Pale Rider. 3/4 ounces of rye whiskey, 3/4 ounces of dry vermouth, 3/4 ounces Grand Classico bitters. Add all the ingredients to a mixing glass and stir with ice to dilute and chill. Strain it into a martini glass and then drink to enjoy.
Awesome.
How much bitters again?
3/4 ounces, so equal parts.
That's a lot of bitters.
That's a lot of bitters.
Yeah, but it's a bitters that can be had neat. So apparently,
okay, that sounds interesting.
That's a lot of bitters.
Okay.
Mr. Todd, what is your cocktail?
Mine is called the Bourbon Cowboy.
It's an awesome name, by the way. That'd be a great band name.
It is a good name. So you want to have a tumbler glass filled halfway with ice. Add 2 ounces of bourbon, 1 ounce of Southern Comfort, a teaspoon of fresh lime juice, and a teaspoon of lemon juice. Stir it together, and then put a garnish with a lime.
Nice. Mine, I feel like I do this every time we do a Western book, but I'm going to do it anyway. Mine is Campfire. It's 2 shots of Campfire whiskey, which is my personal favorite. Neat, which is made by High West Distillery, a product of Utah. Go home state.
And actually, I'll never forget the first time I had that was when we were all up here, like around New Year's, when you came up, and that was when I learned I do like whiskey. I just don't like shitty whiskey. And I remember the waitress came over with a little, the sampler, and she's like, because we all had 3 of them, and she's like, make sure you do the Campfire last because you will overwhelm your palate. And sure enough, it's like drinking a liquid Campfire. It's delicious, but they're not kidding when they call it Campfire.
I love that stuff.
I need to introduce you to some stuff called Lafroig.
Oh my god.
Lafroig, does it taste like frogs?
No, it's a Scottish whiskey that's a little bit smoky.
Yeah, and if it's smoky for Scotch, then it'll be a thing.
It's a little bit. It's smoky as hell.
Actually, I think I had that last weekend.
So
yeah,
for those that like it, it's great.
Very good stuff, though. Yeah.
And for those that don't like smoky whiskeys, it is your enemy.
Okay. We'll have to try that. And last but certainly not least, Lena, do you have a cocktail for us?
I do, and it's super simple. And if you know me, then you know I am a big gin drinker. So it is called Crow's Nest. And it is 1 ounce of gin and 1 ounce of sweet cherry. And you just pour it into an ice-filled glass and an old-fashioned glass and garnish with a lemon twist.
Have I ever told you my favorite quote about gin? It was, I believe it was F. Scott Fitzgerald used to say that he drank gin because his friends couldn't smell it on his breath. And his friends said, yeah, we could. I can't remember where I read that. I read it somewhere, and I was like, "That's some funny shit." So,
wait, that is a man who died at what 44 from alcoholism.
Yeah. So anyway, that says a lot. But and I also I do like gin as well myself. Actually, the only alcohol I don't seem to like is tequila, but that's a whole different thing.
Tequila.
Well, you know.
Oh no, the right tequila is great, guys.
The right tequila it is, but I don't typically have the right tequila. Apparently.
Well, if you ever decide to do another shot of tequila in your life, use cinnamon instead of salt.
Really?
It's so much better. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yes. For my last birthday, I was told that we were doing tequila shots, and we did very nice tequila shots at 33. And the bartender was the one that said, use cinnamon instead of salt. And it made all the world of difference. It was so good.
Okay. I'm going to keep...
Fascinating.
Huh.
Good to know.
What kind of tequila was it?
Oh, I have no idea. It was $10 a shot. So
Probably like Cabo Wabo or something like that.
I honestly have no idea. It was one of the guys I was with was like, "We're doing shots," and I'm like, "You people are crazy."
So
and
did they still like do the? Oh, sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. I'm like, I'm not 21. I'm turning 33. Like, I don't need to do a freaking shot. So.
Do they still use like the lime?
Yes. So
Okay.
you can. We didn't use lime. We used lemon.
Lemon and cinnamon. This got me very intrigued.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
Yes. It was very different, but it was so good.
I'm
so
actually
good.
planning. I'll be in Utah for basically the month of June. We may have to try this.
Yeah, I agree. Let's do it.
We'll try it on air and we'll see. Lena, you may have to join us for whatever episode that is when we do that, so that we can either blame you or praise you.
I think you'll praise me. At least I thought it was yummy, and I'm not big on tequila.
I'm going to try that out.
All right.
Well, that was a lovely little lesson in tequila drinking. Do we have any final warnings for this book before we send people off to read it?
You'll have to pay attention when you read it. Don't read it if you're tired at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is both female and male nudity.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you say that like it's a bad thing.
No. I'm just letting people know.
Okay.
Some people don't like that.
Well, and I think it's about time they kind of release the peen.
Yes.
A lot of times you just get
Exactly.
the titties, and we deserve the peen every so often.
Well, I mean, you did get Batawang.
They get Batawang, and I actually have like I think it was like $120
They
bucks
are.
now.
They're going for like a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
I've got it, but
Remember when we were,
Yeah, I'll look it up.
well, we
while
were
we're
at that
talking.
shop in Fullerton, California, Todd, where they were selling it for $100.
right. But I kind of view that as an "I dare you" pricing. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is out front and center here, and you buy it, and here's the cover price, and yeah, I dare you to buy this off me.
Okay.
So
I mean,
yeah, I could be wrong. I guess I'm wrong.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's what it's actually going for.
Yeah, they got one for $150 like on eBay, and they got a CGC graded one going for $300.
Okay, hold up. Why would you get it CGC rated? Because like, if you're going to buy it, you want to see Batawang. What's the point in having it?
I mean, you can go on Google and look
I
at
guess
Batawang.
that's true.
So you can say I've got the first instance of bat dick going on here.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just, I don't know.
Getting that bat dick though. Yeah, on Amazon the 140.
Jesus.
$140 on Amazon for Batawang. Okay. We're in the wrong business.
And the thing is, the book's fine, but it's not that great.
Yeah.
I mean, the art's amazing. The
Oh,
story
the art's fantastic. Yeah.
Who's the artist?
The art is amazing, but Lieber Mayo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he does great work.
So he did the whole thing. Right. And Brian Azzarello is the writer, and he does. Sometimes he's a good hit, sometimes he's a miss. I mean, this is the same guy that wrote the opening to Killing Joke, the animated movie.
Yeah, that's one of his misses.
So it's not a complete miss, but it's a bit off target.
Lana, are you pro or con Batawang?
I have absolutely no idea what the hell y'all are talking about.
Okay, so I'll go with this. So Batman Dan came out. It's like an oversized, like bigger than normal size comic, and it created a lot of controversy because it's an initial print run. You see Batman's dick like twice, and so it was a big, huge thing. Everyone was freaking out about it. Got all this press, and then
It's a big, huge thing.
it was a big, huge thing. Yeah.
There's Batman.
Hey, if you're a billionaire, you make sure it's big, unless you're Trump. So it was this huge blow up about it, and then DC's like, oh shit, well, because they were going to release a second printing, and then they said, okay, well, the second printing is going to be edited, and we're going to edit all the digital copies, and then they decided that we're not even going to do a second printing. So now it was like what, like a 100,000 print run or something like that for the first edition?
Yeah, 100,000 of these are in existence. Yes.
Yeah, and so they instantly became collector's items.
I don't understand. Are people upset because they didn't think Batman had a penis to begin with? Or,
and this is the same publisher as Watchmen. So you see Blue Dick like exposed in all its glory, and nobody bats an eye.
Yeah, I guess I'm just confused. Like, I thought Batman was quite the playboy. Like, Bruce Wayne was quite the playboy, so obviously he has a dick. Like, I don't understand what the problem is.
Yes,
but it wasn't so much. It wasn't the fans that were freaking out. It was like, and I still go back to saying this was a publicity stunt. Was that it was DC trying to drum up, more interest in this book than it deserves? It's okay. It's not. Again, the art's amazing. That's about it. But they're the ones who said, "Oh no, we made a mistake." And I don't know. We've all seen the Batman porn parody, I'm sure. So we already know what it looks like.
In fairness to the amount of publicity that came up around it, we have been inundated with titillating women in comic books since they've been around. So it's about time that a more prominent penis did come about.
A more prominent penis, also a great band name, by the way.
I like that. Yeah.
They were coming to Warped Tour.
Yeah, but Warped Tour got canceled, unfortunately, because they were so afraid of the prominent penis.
Who wouldn't be?
It's true.
I'm prominent penis.
Okay.
They're only opening bands, though.
I don't know if I want to touch that joke or not. That's where, like, the back of your head just goes, danger, 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 don't go there.
Not even just the tip of the joke?
I need an adult.
Oh, and there he goes.
Okay.
Oh.
I would probably shame you, but my phone's dead.
I took the shame bell off my phone, unfortunately.
Thank you for coming, Elena.
Yeah.
Aren't you so glad you're here?
Oh my! Well, first off, I talk to Jason all the time. I get this anyway.
I'm so sorry.
No, but I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but I was talking to Lena on text message, and she was like, "Well, like, you guys seem to know what you're talking about." I'm like, "Oh no, it's all in the editing. We're morons."
Yeah. Which, by the way, I ended up reading to my friends that I was with yesterday, and they were like, "Oh, so it'll be fine." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess."
I'm not wrong, right? We are morons.
So this is kind of funny. So while we're talking, I'm just on Comixology looking at random shit, and they're showing Spider-Man Unlimited from like the mid to late 90s, and the cover is him fighting Carnage, and it's like the headline is Spider-Man throws down with Cardiac.
Cardiac. They spelled it wrong?
No, it's Carnage.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay.
What happened with Spider-Man gets old? You gotta take
It's got a pacemaker. Cool. Okay. Well, so with that warning is 20 minutes ago.
Right.
Half an hour in. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to take a little bit of a break. You're going to hear the same ad as you did last month because I played the wrong ad all last month. So there you go. So thanks. It's 2 months out of us. Oops. Sorry, the box. Go listen to the box as well. Sorry about that. Anyway, so we will see you on the flip side.
While we take a break, here is a message from one of our fellow Hello Sweetie Network podcasts.
Hi, everybody. This is Matt.
And I'm Trevor. We're the co-hosts of the Nighthawks podcast, a movie podcast for people who like to stay up late.
We've just joined the Hello Sweetie Podcast Network, expanding our podcast empire and bringing the world to its knees.
Take a seat in the Nighthawks diner with us. We're going to talk to you about movies.
We've got new movies, old movies, movies we love, movies nobody loves.
You can find us on Stitcher, iTunes, and at nighthawkspodcast.com.
Hey, that was pretty good. Do you think they'll listen?
The good ones always do.
Who wants to do the plot summary? Because I don't understand this book.
Not me.
I don't know if I understand this book. That's the problem. I don't know if I can do the plot summary. Because that's the problem I had with this book. The first time I read it, I'm like, I don't think I get it. And then I read it. There was a couple times when I was reading this time around, being like, I think I understand what's going on now. And then I'm going, no, I don't think I do.
No.
I can try to do it then.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll let the fancy pants writer,
Oh, great. Okay.
explain it to us.
Set me up for failure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
That's how I roll.
Yeah. All right, we're ready?
Yeah, we're ready to go whenever you are.
Okay, so
We're gonna use it. What the hell?
so every issue of Pretty Deadly Volume 1 starts with the skeleton of a bunny and a butterfly essentially narrating this story of a young girl named Sissy and her caretaker, Foxy, or Fox, who is protecting her for a reason we don't understand. The story starts with the introduction of Sissy and Fox in this western town, and they are telling the story of this woman, Beauty, who was in love with Mason, and Mason, yes, and Mason who locked her away. Mason who locked her away in a tower because he didn't like the jealous looks that other guys were giving her, and she just wasted away in there until when she took her own life, and death came for her. But because death saw Beauty and she was so beautiful, he fell in love with her as well, and he took her for himself, and they had a child. And then let's see. So that's the initial setup, and then Sissy steals a piece of paper from this random guy in the town, and that sets off large events because when Fox looks at that piece of paper later on, he understands that there is a big, dangerous person who is coming to chase them, and that woman is Big Alice, who's a wonderfully designed bounty hunter for death, it looks like. And let's see. She gets this information from Johnny, who's the guy that Sissy stole the piece of paper from. And so Alice is off and chasing Fox and Sissy, who then hide out with a woman named Sarah and her family. And then the next morning, Fox and Sissy head out on the road. And let's see. Johnny is still at the whorehouse in town. Yep.
Like you do.
There is more... a lot of mythologizing within each episode or within each issue, talking about the maid night and the night maid and the day maid. That doesn't really come into play a huge amount until the very end. Sissy talks about the dream she had in which Ginny is there in this burning town. Let's see. Ginny comes to Sarah's residence. Or is that Alice? That's one of the things that's confusing about this book, is that Alice and Ginny, for me, end up getting a little bit confused. So Ginny comes and destroys all the people around Sarah's house, and then Sarah says that, here we go. Alice comes back. Yeah, Alice is on their tail as well, and she and Ginny fight, and then Ginny kills Alice, and she just turns into a swarm of butterflies. And then Fox and Sissy are still on the run. And then Johnny is joined by a raven, who is later revealed to be a woman named Molly Raven. Then you also find out, not very clearly, that Molly Raven and Johnny Coyote are these weird sort of human-animal beings that exist in several different worlds. And so Fox and Sissy are still on the run, and they have to run before the flood wipes them away. And let's see, Fox reveals more of the story and reveals that he is actually the Mason to this beauty, and that he paid a price, and he was going to do this job for death in order to be with his love again. And the job was to go to this river of blood and sacrifice a monster that was being born there. But when he did, he saw that the monster was in fact a little girl with a blue eye and a brown eye, which turns out to be Sissy. Are we still with? Is everyone still with me? Have we lost anyone?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great.
Yeah.
All right. So the flood
right
comes
here.
and separates Sissy and Fox, and then Sissy is woken up by Molly Raven and Johnny Coyote on the side of the river, and he reveals more of the story to Sissy, and she realizes that she is, or she has some sort of destiny to play in the grand scheme of things. And then Alice returns to Death. She gets back her form and promises to not fail him again. And then it's also revealed that Beauty is actually still somewhat alive and with Death, and she just wants to be set free somehow, but he won't let her because he has a plan to remove Death from the plane of existence forever, because he doesn't want to do his job, but he also doesn't want someone else to do it for him. And then, let's see, we've got... Ginny, who rescues Fox from the river, gives him a count of 5 to run, and they have a fight sequence, and she stabs him but does not mortally wound him. It's a beautiful fight sequence, by the way. And then they team up, and they end up meeting up with Johnny Coyote, Molly Raven, and Sissy outside of Death's door, where Alice is waiting for them, and Ginny says, "Tell Daddy I'm home." And then... let's see. Alice and Ginny fight, and Alice wins. Johnny Coyote, proving once and for all he is not a coward, actually ends up shooting Alice, and she returns to her butterfly form. And then they try to go inside to this ethereal plane of Death's garden, and Ginny is not allowed access, but because Sissy is the new Death, she is allowed access, and these two maids, the night maid and the day maid, are then reformed into one, since they were broken once Death decided he didn't want to do his job anymore. And then she goes inside, and when Fox, Sissy, Ginny, and Johnny Coyote are all inside, it turns into a hangman's pedestal where it's just a western town, and Death has constructed this environment for everyone, and there's a large shootout, and a lot of people are shot and killed. And let's see. Death is coming for them, and Death dies. And then Sissy takes his place, and that's pretty much the end. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, we can go into a lot more details, but I felt like trying to give an overview of this because there are so many details already that are left out. It would be too confusing for the listener, so I tried to give as many necessary details as possible.
Yeah. Well, and so like the first time I read this, I didn't like it because it confused the living shit out of me. And that's part of it because I think with the part of the reason I thought it reminded me of Sandman is with all the death, in this plane and that plane, and like the sort of the different mythical figures going back and forth and stuff like that. That is part of where I associate with it. I liked it more the second time around, but I still didn't feel like I totally understood what was going on. And every time I felt like I caught up and understood what was going on, then I was like, no, wait, I'm wrong. That's not what I think is going on. Like, because there was a certain point in time where I was reading through it and I thought that perhaps, I think it's Johnny Coyote and who's the guy with his eyes cut?
Fox, the Mason.
Fox. Yeah, Mason Fox. I thought that they might have been the same person, but at different times in the timeline. Like I thought, oh, maybe that's the thing. And then all of a sudden they meet up and I'm like, nope, I'm fucking wrong. Never mind. You know what I mean? Because I thought one of them might have been like the origin story happened at the same time. Like there was little things like that like I kept thinking, oh, maybe I figured this out. And then, no, I'm wrong. That to say, like I liked it more the second time around. It almost makes me want to read it a third time to see if I finally get it. But who knows? But yeah. Lena, as our guest, what are your thoughts?
I liked it. The only thing that I didn't really understand the whole like sex scene and why it was necessary. I get like the nudity and everything. It just wasn't like something that was necessary for any other part of the story or the character development or anything. So it was just like, we'll throw it in there because it's going to be men reading it. Which is how I took it.
It's interesting. I also was wondering if it was some sort of like weird historical fact that like some of the medical procedures were done by the prostitutes or something like that in the different areas or whatever. Because essentially like he's at a brothel, but they're the ones who are like taking care of his wounds, which I thought was really interesting. You know what I mean? Because they have the thing of like she tells him it's going to sting and like whatever. And it's like, I mean, so it was a weird scene. I'm not going to say that you're wrong, but I didn't know if it was like trying to pass on a historical fact or if it was just weird just to be weird.
See, they really are doing the Lord's work. So actually, I can't take credit for this kind of perspective because after I read it, I was kind of like Brian. I was like, there's something weird I'm not getting here, and maybe I just overlooked something or anything else. And there was a great article. If you just Google the synopsis of this book, it'll pop up about how is trying to create this mythic world that has this fantasy aspect, but with the Old West thing. And it doesn't quite meld. And so they actually brought up the scene in the brothel about why was that even in here? Unless it was trying to prove like, oh yeah, this is the Old West, because the Old West have brothels and everything else. That was fun back then. And they kind of talked about the cognitive dissonance between what's actually happening in the story and what's trying to happen in the setting. Because like the way this story plays out, it could have happened any timeline. It could have happened 2079. It could have happened today. It could have happened back in the Victorian age, because that's mythos is built and that's great. But they kind of went overboard trying to prove that was in the West, like the way everyone talked. It was all like, mom, pop, cattle. It's like, it's that weird thing that, and again, like the brothel scene that you brought up, Elena, wasn't necessary. It wasn't really part of the story. And considering, Kelly Sue DeConnick has done so much amazing things, and she's, and then obviously this book is full of very strong female characters. Sure. The choice to do that brothel scene still was kind of mystifying to me, because we didn't need it. And yeah, maybe we could say it was thrown in for the straight or male or the lesbian audience, but I don't see Kelly Sue DeConnick doing that without a purpose. So maybe I just missed that, or I need to dig in deeper. I kind of
agreed when you guys were talking, and then I was thumbing through the pages to see if I could find any sort of reason why it could have been in there. And I think the reason might be that it actually does exemplify him being a coward. He's letting this girl and this old man do this on their own. And he's obviously got a bigger role to play with him and Molly Raven, but he's deciding to just hide away in the brothel and not really be a part of it. So I think it actually does show him as that coward that does eventually redeem himself at the end, like getting involved in doing something.
I guess.
It's there. Also, Adam, talking about setting, Volume 2 of Pretty Deadly takes place during World War I.
Okay. So this is like a time-hopping thing?
Yeah, so Volume 2 does a big time jump. So the immortal characters are still there, but all of the mortal ones are obviously dead and gone.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Todd, what are your thoughts?
So, as Brian was talking about a little bit, there's an anime called Fooly Fooly.
Yep.
I love this thing, but I had to watch it like 5 times before I went, yeah, I think I understand what's going on now. But it was an absolutely fascinating thing to watch, how it all fit together. And you felt there was an overarching theme going on, but there was just little bits and pieces that would kind of shout out to you and raise the flag. And you're like, this is utterly fascinating. I find this a bit similar in that way. And the art by Emma Rios is just simply amazing. As I'm reading this, I really see her as a bit of a combination of Liam Sharp. He's currently doing the Green Lantern run with Morrison, and he, and a few other people. So there's just a beauty to it. So even with like the Vulture's costume, the crow, the cloak, and you've got Death and Ginny, and you've got this long flowing hair, and you've got these other guys. I mean, they're really roughed up, and there is just this a detached beauty to a lot of it. And at the same time, you've got these color schemes from Jordi Belair, and it's very muted on the color palette. There was a great YouTube video from Strip Panel Naked talking about this comic. Highly recommend to go watch it, and you'll go, oh my god, Jordi Belair is the most brilliant person in the world, which I kind of agree with. But you've got very muted tones and colors, and then the red comes into play, even at the very beginning, and it just kind of shows death is near whenever you see red. Or characters walk in, and they themselves are in black. There's nothing red about them, but their entire setting, like the inside of the bar they go into and the outside, is just completely coated in red. And like wherever this person goes, death follows. And it's a story that it's really interesting to watch. And there is so much mythology, and it is there is a lyricalness to it. So sometimes as you're reading it, you've got what you're reading on the surface, what's going through, and yet there's something going on. It feels like behind the page that you're not quite getting. And as you do read it multiple times, like, oh, I'm getting a little bit more out of this. And what I feel it really succeeds is I go back to Jonathan Hickman's Nightly News. Very well done comic. However, I felt like he was writing of going, oh, look how smart and clever I am. Aren't I so much smarter and cleverer than you? And that really grinds me the wrong way. This doesn't feel
Agreed.
like she's trying to out clever us. It's just there is a lot of layers going on, and as you're reading here, and that's done really well. So it's one of those things I've read this 3 or 4 times now myself, and as you read it, you go through it and you read it again, and I'm like, I did read the same thing, but I'm getting different things out of it. And I find that so, I mean, it's something to return to. And so someone says, oh, just read it once and you know what's going on. And you're like, are we talking about the same thing? Because there's a lot of comics and stories of anything. It's like, oh yeah, I saw it, we're fine. And this one's like, but did you really? And as you're looking at different angles to it, or as you're reading it again, it's like, now I kind of understand what I read the first time. Now I'm noticing the secondary and the tertiary things going along with it. And it's just, it's really lovely. Yeah.
It's funny, Todd, you talking about that, because I feel like I've had the same conversation with people about the movie Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
That I've seen legitimately like 100 times. Like, I have seen this movie so many times that when people are like, I don't get it. And it's like, I do. I've also watched it a bunch to get like to really understand it. So it is, I feel like it's the same kind of feeling.
Yeah, I totally get that Donnie Darko sort of thing, and like the Fooly Cooley thing too. Like the second time I watched Fooly Cooley, I finally was like, oh, I think I know what's going on now. Which I think I don't know if I've ever mentioned what my theory is. Todd, do you? Have I ever mentioned what my theory is to what Fooly Cooley is about?
Yeah,
never mind.
Go ahead.
You think I'm wrong?
No, you're right. I completely agree.
I think Fooly Cooley is a metaphor for a kid coming of age, at least of a sexual age, I should say. Because if you read, I don't know why we're on a Fooly Cooley conversation, but if you watch that, we are.
Here we are.
If you watch that anime, every time this cute girl shows up, a weird thing grows out of his head of some kind or another, like a horn of some kind or whatever. So he has a protrusion that he is very embarrassed by and keeps trying to hide, and yet the girl is very fascinated by it and ends up being the solution to his growths, I should say. So yeah, anyway.
And the other thing that with Fooly Cooley that plays into it, one of the phrases repeated over and over again, it's like, here I am in this town where nothing ever happens. It's also very boring. And there's like world-defining apocalyptic events at times and everything else that are just so out of this world. So it's kind of like a kid with hormones amped all the way to the top. And at the end of the day, it's still like, might be a big deal to him. And yet at the same time,
it's only a big deal. Yeah, it's only a big deal to him. And everything else is very normal and boring. And this, you know what I mean?
Right. Extraordinary to him. It's ordinary to everybody else.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Cool. Jason, do you have more thoughts?
So it's definitely a book that requires multiple readings to get more and more out of it. Because the first time I read it, I did read it a little bit quickly. And the next time I read it, and I could see one of the things that I appreciated about it was that it's a mythological tale, but it also takes the time to talk about the struggles between gods, humans, and also the animals. Because the introduction of each issue has the bunny and the butterfly interacting with another animal that's going through the same process of life that they all are. The armadillo who's scared, the scorpions and the ants that get squashed, the coyote that can't be tamed and does whatever he wants, the hummingbird that has to fly harder and harder when it rains. It's just, there's a lot of instances that get sort of glossed over if you read it too quickly. But the one that stuck to me the hardest when I read it the first time was actually Sissy. She reminded me so much of, if you see a young kid who gets cancer, unfortunately, you see a lot of the parents or the adults around them try to protect them and shield them. And the kid, for whatever reason, is able to have some sort of weird internal strength to just keep moving because that's all they can do. And Sissy reminds me so much of that, just this weird, quiet bravery, literally in the face of death. And so reading it again the second time with that in mind, you can see when she stops becoming a kid and starts to realize, okay, I've got to do this thing, and I'm just going to do it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking for my favorite quote out of this book, but I'll hunt it down. If anybody has something else they want to mention.
I'm going to ask if it's this one, because I wrote this down. when Ginny and Sarah are talking, and I think Ginny asks Sarah, "What am I?" Sarah turns to her and says, "You're bleeding."
That was not what I was looking for. Mine was
Okay.
It was something to the. I think it's Fox says it. It's something. It's when they're going to meet death, and it's something to the effect of that they only life is only something that they never own it. They only grasp or they only hold on to it for a little while or something to that effect.
Life ain't ours to keep, girl. We get to hold some for a little bit, but then we got to pass it on.
Yes, that's the quote I liked.
Yep.
Yes, thank you. Did you write that down as well?
No. I know exactly where that is because that stuck with me too.
Yeah. That was like my favorite quote from this book, which I just really liked it because it was. Also, we're recording this on Mother's Day, and the passing on of life seemed like an appropriate thing to be reading today.
Yeah.
Anyway, now you can do the math to figure out when we recorded this versus when it came out. Hey, isn't that fun?
Yay!
Cool. Does anybody else have any topics they want to discuss on this book?
I mean, I like the personification of death. He's literally afraid of losing his job and not having a purpose.
Yeah, but also doesn't want to do his job anymore.
Right.
I work with a lot of people like that.
What do you know?
He's the first time we're introduced to him, he's literally pruning the garden. But then later on, you learn more of the mythology that he's actually stopped pruning and he's no longer doing his job.
I mean, there's some interesting things in here.
Yeah.
Here's to be honest with you, I think after I read this the first time, I had no interest in continuing to reading. Now that we've read it and discussed it more, I'm now curious to see what the second book holds.
Yeah.
Like that, I'm very curious to see. Like now, I'm like really interested in it, which is kind of interesting. I'm now questioning. There's another book I read that I didn't really like it, and I'm almost wondering if I should go reread that because like it gets a lot of really good reviews, and I'm like I should probably reread this just to see if.
Like Witch Doctor?
I'm not giving Witch Doctor a second try. No, I'm gonna. Oh, did I? I guess I did. Maybe I did.
Remember you said you hated it.
Well,
you
that's
did
right. I liked it more
last
the
year.
second time around. I didn't like it the first time around as much. Yeah. The other one is Monstrous. When I first read it, I didn't like it, and now I get such good reviews. I kind of want to check it out.
I'm going through that one right now. I really like it.
Okay, so maybe I just sometimes like you're just in a weird headspace or whatever, and you don't dig stuff that later you end up finding out that you would.
Yeah, I'm about halfway through the first trade on that one. And I'm
It's
really
very
enjoying
heady
it.
and uses a lot of science fiction terminology that can get lost a few times, but it's
maybe that's what I got lost in. I don't know.
For me, it's
It's written by.
Well, there's that. No, it's not. Monstrous?
I know, I'm joking.
Okay.
It's like Marjorie Liu.
She's an attorney. I know that because I read her bio. Anyway.
right.
Cool. Lana, do you have any other thoughts?
No, I mean, it's funny to hear you say that the first time you read it, you didn't like it and you didn't want to read the next volume. I am not a big, like, fantasy kind of person. I mean, the biggest fantasy that I get into is like Harry Potter. And, but I loved this and I want to read the second volume. I think the art is beautiful and, it kept my interest and I don't have ADD, but I get bored with shit real fast. So like this kept me, wanting to keep reading and not just be like, all right, let's get to the end. Like, how do I get through this? So I really liked it, but no,
I mean, like, here's the thing is like, I'm kind of with you. I'm not really like a sword and sorcery kind of person. Harry Potter is like the only real fantasy thing I get into. Like, I went and saw Lord of the Rings with Todd, but that's still the only time I've ever seen it is when we went opening night. And that was it. So, it's just not totally my jam. Like, but like, this doesn't feel, it feels mythological, but doesn't feel as
fantastic.
Sorcery or fantasy. You know what I mean? Like, the back of it says fantasy, but like, I think for me, the thing that I don't particularly like about fantasy is these made up rules of like, oh yeah, this ogre has this special power that you just randomly happen to find out because it's really pivotal at that moment. There's a little bit of Deus Machina that always seems to come along with some of that, at least for me. And so I don't particularly enjoy that, but like this one, there is a reality and a rules to the world that seems to make somewhat logical sense within the context of it. So like, I think that's one of the reasons why I think I kind of would like this more than like a typical hardcore fantasy kind of book.
Yeah.
Have you read American Gods?
You asking me or Elena?
You.
I would say I definitely haven't.
No, I haven't yet.
You really should. It's interesting.
You really should,
Neil Gaiman wrote it, so there's that lever to begin with. But the idea, it's people that believe in a god or something causes them to be real. And the basic setup is you've got a bunch of the old gods that people aren't believing in so much anymore versus the new gods like technology and all these other things.
The internet,
The internet, and the gods are basically, it's coming to a head, and there's going to be a day of reckoning between the old and the new. And it is quite fascinating, and that's a very quick overview of it. But it's I get similar feelings. It's worth checking out, and there's a little bit of similar feelings to this. As this book, I feel.
There's a similar concept in Fables, where the Fables who are more heavily believed in have more power and more strength to a certain extent than the ones that no one's heard of. You know what I mean? Like Cinderella is like pretty powerful and badass, but like Tom Thumb, who's a little less known, is not quite, doesn't have the strength or that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the conceit behind American Gods as well. Is the more followers, the more people they have devoted to them, the stronger they become. So,
okay.
Yeah. And I haven't seen the second season yet, but the first season on Stars is absolutely phenomenal of American Gods.
Thank you, Brian Fuller.
And then he left because Brian Fuller giveth and Brian Fuller taketh away.
Wait a second. Isn't Brian Fuller the one that did
Pushing Daisies?
Yep.
Yes.
Pushing Daisies? Okay.
Pushing Daisies and Wonderfalls and
which I watched, Brian, because you told me to watch it. I liked it. I mean, it's not as good as Pushing Daisies.
It's one of his first shows. I really liked it. But
it also made me watch Dead Like Me again, the series, not the movie.
Yeah, don't watch the movie. That movie was terrible. It was super upsetting.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Anybody? I mean, are we good on parting thoughts? I think we're good. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, then let us jump into our final grades. So for this story, self-contained, what is your grade, Adam?
I'll go with a B- because this does kind of complete the story that they're given. And as we heard, does branch off into further things and kind of changes the setting. That seems kind of interesting. Okay. So,
Mr. Jason,
I'll give it an A-, pretty much for the same reasons. But I think that Sissy and Fox's storyline has a beginning, middle, and end, and then Ginny, who's a supporting character in this, goes on and does her own thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Todd,
I'm gonna give this a B+. I really enjoyed it. The story is all there, but once again, and not to fault to the script writing or anything, I feel like I'm missing things I need to come back and find. So I'm going to downgrade her. Going to give her a lower grade because I'm stupid.
Okay. I'm going to give it probably a B. I think for an ongoing series, it does a pretty good job of wrapping up an initial storyline. And Ms. Lena.
I said B+ for the same thing that Jason said. I thought that it had like a good beginning, middle, and end. I didn't feel like I have to read the next volume. But I will. But yeah. So
there's only 10 issues total, and this volume's the first 5.
Oh, they only did 10 issues. Are they going to do another run, or is that's just what they've done total?
It's an Image thing, so you can say, well, I guess hiatus.
Okay.
Yeah, she had mentioned in an interview that she wanted to return to it. She just didn't know in what format yet.
Gotcha. Well, I can totally see it being just straight trades. You know what I mean? Because that's starting to become more of a thing because those sell more for a lot of people and so save your money from single issues and just put out a full trade. Like you could see that working on a book like this as well.
People like me.
Well, this entire show, we're all trade. Well, except for Adam, but we're all trade waiters.
I mainly buy
what?
I mainly buy them in trades.
I think Maya's the one who buys the issues.
Yeah, Maya does buy the issues of everything.
Yeah.
I've only got all I have in my hold right now is Batman Damned and not Damned, the Batman Who Laughs and Wicked and Divine. That's coming to an end. So.
Well, cool. So for Kelly Sue DeConnick, what is your grade, Miss Lena?
I said B+. The language really got me. It felt way too hard trying with that whole Western piece of everything that I just remember taking a African American theater class where my teacher was like, don't write this shit in. Just let people know where they're at and just write the characters and write the dialogue, and people can put the accent on it that they want. And it just pulled me out of it because I was like, wait, he didn't say that right. And I'm not a grammar nut, but it drove me nuts. Okay. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Mr. Todd.
I'm going to give it an A-. If it's causing me to come back to read it again and again and again, then because I'm finding more, I'm going to give that. I think it's worth it there.
I'm going to take a little bit of a cue from Todd and say that I'm going to give her a B because I'm stupid. I think it's more my fault that I didn't quite understand everything, but I do like it enough to want to come back and read it. So I don't want to completely condemn it, but like it confused the shit out of me at points. Mr. Jason.
For me, it's an A. I usually do have a problem with writing that feels too hackneyed or forced, but for whatever reason, none of this really pinged me. And then with regards to it being confusing, it definitely is at times, but I found that the slower that I went and the more I paid attention to the art in conjunction with the words, it made a lot more sense. So I want to read more, and I loved this book, so it's an A. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Adam.
I'm going to go with the B-. I was actually going to go a lower score just because of the things I mentioned before with it just kind of felt like they were trying to combine two different worlds and they were trying to go overboard to prove like, hey, look, we are a Western. And for the same reason that you said that, you had to go back and read it again. I am intrigued now that you had a different experience the second time around, so I am willing to give it that second chance. It just, something about it just kind of fell off. And, if I go through a second time and all of a sudden it clicks, I'll be the first to say, hey, I'm stupid too. I didn't get it. And I'm excited to see the next one and revise my score. But for right now, I just don't have that drive to go any further. So
cool. That seems fair. So for art, for Emma Rios? Emma Rios. What is your grade, Mr. Todd?
A. I mean, it's beautiful. Again, it's the comparisons. You've got some Liam Sharp or Jeff Shaw. Jeff Shaw did God Country with Donny Cates.
Okay.
So there's just some. So you take a look at some of that there. It's interesting. There's detail when there needs to be in some ways, and there's a lot of impression of detail that goes along so well. And when they're down in the underworld death area and you've got all these floating butterflies and other things going on, and it's just beautiful and lyrical and just captures me so well. And the coloring, again, is fantastic from Jordi Belair. It's an
A. Ms. Lena.
A. It's beautiful. Like, I even just looking at the pages now, I love it.
And Mr. Adam.
Easily an A as well. It's the artwork is stunning. It kind of reminds me of Yoshitaka Amano, who's my favorite artist, who did a lot of the work on, actually all the work on all the Final Fantasy games. Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's everything I could ever want for that. So my misgivings about the book have nothing to do with the art.
Okay. And I'm going to go with, I'll go with an A. I'll join the club. I'll be one of the cool kids today and give it an A with everybody else. Cool. So for overall grades, what is your grade, Lena?
I said A. I really liked it. After reading some of the books that you guys read in January and some of the other books that you guys have read along the way over the last few months, this is easily one of the ones that I will easily reread again and want to read the second volume. So I really liked it. I gave it an A.
Cool. Mr. Todd.
I really enjoy this, so I'm going to give this an A- as well. It's just top to bottom, something I'll come back to again and again, I think so, over time. Okay, so yeah.
I'm going to jump in and give it an A- as well with you. I think really my own stupidity is what is marking it down a little bit. I will admit to that. And that's fine. I'm okay with admitting that. Mr. Adam.
I'm going to go with the B, again, kind of bumping it up from my original score just because of the feedback I got from everyone here. I am going to go back and read it again, and I reserve the right to change my score if need be. But for right now, as amazing as the art is and as interesting as the story is, it's not clicking for me. So,
well, that gives us a GPA of 3.68, which is, we'll call it an A-, because that's just barely below an A-. It's 0.02. It rounds up to an A-, in my opinion. So we'll call that good. Fantastic. Next week we are doing My Favorite Thing is Monsters. Who wrote that? I don't have it in front of me.
Emil Ferris.
Okay. And she also illustrated it as well, correct?
She did. Her and that ballpoint pen. My God.
Yeah. There's another artist. I think he's Italian named. I think he goes by Giuseppe. I think.
Yeah, Giuseppe.
Hey. Yeah. Adam, you're gonna get me in so much trouble. But like he also draws with a ballpoint pen, which looks interesting. But her work is far more refined than his is. But it's pretty interesting. It looks pretty interesting. I haven't read it yet. Yeah. So who has anybody read it? Actually, now let's go back.
I'm in the midst of it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a short read, so we need to start reading it now.
Yes, we're not reading it the day of. I gotcha. Well, Todd, what can you tell us about it so far?
The main character is a person that what you're basically reading, it seems to be, is a collected notebook of being a detective going after this mystery, who also views themselves as a monster, as investigating other things.
Okay. Interesting. Cool. Does anybody have any recommendations for this week?
As I said earlier, if you enjoyed this, go watch American Gods, go watch Fooly Cooley, and enjoy yourself.
Okay. Treat yourself. I'm going to also go with something similar. This book also reminded me of a Stephen King comic book series called The Tower? What was it? The Gunslinger.
Dark
Tower, the Gunslinger series. That's what I read. And there's something similar about it that just reminded me of that. I think it's the Western / mythological quality to it. That and the ever classic Sandman. Those are the two things that really sort of remind me of that. But that was not what I was going to recommend. What I was going to recommend was I did a 5K at Universal Studios randomly because why the hell not? That and the fact that I wanted to really get up and close and personal with Bates Motel. That for some reason that just really intrigued me. It was a fun little run. There's one hill that is a bitch, but other than that, it was fun. But they're doing another one in November. That is the one I did was Minions themed. The one in November is going to be Jurassic Park themed. So if you're in Los Angeles and you want to run a little 5K or through the backlots of Hollywood Studios and stuff like that of a Hollywood studio, it's actually pretty fun. So I think they're going to grow. There was a few issues here and there as far as my opinion goes, but I think that's some stuff that they can easily fix, and I think they'll probably figure it out. So I think by the next time the next one rolls around, I think it'll probably be good. So yeah, and I have a really cool medal with Minions running on it. It's pretty bitchin'.
Nice.
Yeah. So sorry, what was that, Adam?
Are there bananas on it?
I don't know, but you can the outer dial spins, and so you can see the minion in the different spaces. So you can watch the center, and it's like a zoetrope almost. You can spin it and watch the minion run. It's really cool. So yeah, it's fun. Mr. Adam, do you have a recommendation?
Actually, yeah. So obviously, when this comes out, we record in advance. Pokemon Detective Pikachu is officially the best video game movie ever made.
Okay.
It's a ton of fun. I had a blast with it. I went and saw it with Maya, earlier in the week at this press screening. I honestly, when I heard about live action Pokemon, I was like, do we really need or want this? And the answer is yes, we absolutely do need and want this movie. It's charming. It's a ton of fun. If you're not a Pokemon fan, don't worry. It eases you in. It makes sense. If you are a Pokemon fan, there are Easter eggs just scattered throughout that you're going to have a blast looking for. Also, it's surprisingly really dirty. There's a lot of jokes that the kids will not get. It's very Rocky and Bullwinkle, where the kids are laughing because Pikachu said something funny, and the adults are like, "That was really good." It's charming. It's interesting. It made me want to go play Pokemon some more. And a couple little problems in the third act that kind of goes off the rails, but considering what it could have been and what it is, this is definitely a love letter to everything Pokemon of the last 20 whatever years. So if you have kids, take them. They'll love it. You'll love it. If you don't have kids, go see it. It's just incredibly enjoyable and charming.
Cool. Fantastic. Lena, do you have any recommendations for us?
I do. I have one. So keeping with the lovely women theme, Someone Great on Netflix. It was written and directed by Jennifer Caton Robinson. and stars Gina Rodriguez. And it's wonderful. They finally get millennials like right in a movie. So I loved it from beginning to end. And obviously there are a few things that are in it that you're like, okay, really? To kind of get to the ending that they were at. But they finally got 30, that late 20s, early 30s time frame for a millennial, like right on screen. And it's not this like fake, way too much drama, but really, really, really well done and amazing actors in it. So highly recommend it.
Cool. Does anybody else have anything else?
Oh, I think that's it.
Cool. Thank you again for joining us, Lana. You are welcome back anytime. We will suck you in and, we will make you part of us. One of us. One of us.
Oh, my God. Freaking freaks, man. You and that damn movie.
I love that movie. Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us, Lana. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, like I said, you're always welcome back. And
Yay.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that being said, thanks everybody, and we will see you on the flip side.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. Please rate us on whatever service you listen on. And remember, at least we're not cinema queens.